Alright guys, as promised, Friday night back in the garage, just coming up to 6:45, and we're about to remove a few more trim pieces here to be able to get the carpet out. So we're going to tackle the door sill trim pieces and the A-post trim pieces today, and then I think what we'll do is we'll move on to removing the seat belts from the rear here. We may get to actually removing the passenger side seat as well in order to get those seat belts out a little easier. But we're going to tackle these sill and A-post trim strips first. Alright, there's always got to be one or two screws that are going to be stubborn. In this case, I've got one little screw up the front here that I can't get out that's stripped. And we've got one that's halfway out here that I should be able to get a pair of vice grips on and just twist that out. But we're going to get the Dremel out, and we're just going to cut the head off of that one, or just grind the head off carefully so we don't mark the strip up. And we'll go from there. Once we get it off, we'll replace the screws later on. I did get the A-post piece off, and it's just sitting over there on the floor. So that came off easily enough. So just this one screw here, and we should be able to get this sill piece off. Alright, sill piece is successfully removed. So back down to here, and we've got carpet being able to be pulled away from the sill and from the A-post. Looking good under here, looking very good. So we'll do the same thing here on the driver's side. Move over there. Alright, sill trim and A-post trim removed on the driver's side. So we're now on to removing the seat belts on the inner and outer. And they just have these black plastic caps that are pry off on top of the bolts. And it's an 18 millimeter wrench. Yeah, to get those fasteners off. So we're going to town. We're doing the driver's side first. We'll remove the passenger side seat, do the same thing, and get one step closer to removing the carpet. And be forewarned, at least on the later cars like the 81 here, there is actually a wire coming out of the seatbelt, because there is the seatbelt buzzer and the seatbelt light on this car. So I'm assuming those are running under the carpet somewhere, so we'll detach those, or we'll figure out how to detach those from the buckle. And once we get the other seat out, we'll peel that carpet back and see if there's like a quick disconnect or some spade connectors underneath the carpet that we can get those detached fairly easily and quickly. We will see. Alright, passenger side seats out. So we'll go after the seat belts on that side, and then we'll go after the handbrake and figure out how to get that boot unattached. I think it's just a button up, but I'm not sure. We'll find out. That handbrake boot was just snapped in there, which is great. That's easily removable. But now we got to drill all of the snaps to be able to get the carpet out. So how many snaps are there? 6 snaps in there we have to drill out. So we'll drill those and keep them so we can root them back in once we get the new carpets. Those will have to be reinstalled. Alright, just pulling the carpet a little further forward from the rear shelf. Here's the connection for the seat belt. This wire connector here. I think you can see that. That wire connector there. So we've just pulled out the other end off the seat belt itself and fed that through. So that's disconnected. The rivets are drilled out, so we can pull that carpet a little bit further forward over the handbrake. Alright guys, one more quick item I did is I removed these screws from up in the footwell at the top of the carpet. There's a few random screws in there that are self-tappers. They just have a washer on them, and they just help to keep the top of the carpet against the bulkhead. There's 3 on the driver's side, there's 2 on the passenger side. I believe they're random locations. They would have just buzzed these in wherever they wanted to, since they're self-tappers. So I think the locations will vary amongst the different cars. That's why I didn't film it. Just be aware that they're there. So next steps are to remove the speakers and speaker grills to be able to get the carpet entirely out. I believe that's all that's holding the carpet in now. The only thing is we want to test the radio tomorrow, do a little bit more tests. We want to make sure the cassette deck works, and Doc has sent me a little Bluetooth device that plugs into the cassette that I want to check to see if it works. If both the cassette and the Bluetooth option work for this radio, we'll probably end up keeping it. I had suggested to Doc that he might want to look at a more modern radio, something that has Bluetooth connectivity, or something that has Sirius XM connectivity, for example. So Doc is kind of partial to this old period correct Blaupunkt, and I quite like it as well. But again, if you want some more modern accoutrements, you might want to go to a more modern setup radio, but retro looking. So if you look at a website called Retro Sound, you'll get the idea that I'm talking about. Anyway, we'll be out here tomorrow. We'll do some testing on the radio. We'll break out some old cassettes, maybe have a listen to those. And after we determine what we're going to do with the radio, we'll move on to removing the speaker grills and the speakers, and be able to remove, I believe we'll be able to remove that whole carpet piece that's remaining. So we'll get back out here tomorrow. We'll see you then. Have a good night. Well, Saturday morning, I think it's the 29th of January. And although it's sunny, it's extremely cold out. It's minus 29 degrees Celsius this morning, around minus 31 with the wind chill. And I'm just heading out to the garage to crank up the heater in the garage, so when we get back from doing a little bit of grocery shopping this morning, we can start on the Alfa Romeo. So that's what we're up to, bright and early, Saturday morning. Alright, errands have been run, so we're back out in the garage playing with the 81 Alfa Romeo Spider. And we're going to check out the radio functionality this morning. I've already been playing around with this potential Bluetooth transmitter that I have over here that Doc sent. It actually looks pretty nice, and I watched a few YouTube videos on it, and it seems to work pretty well. Unfortunately, this will not work for this car, because with this digital transmitter, Bluetooth transmitter, you need a digital receiver or a digital tuner to be able to tune to a specific station. So for example, this is telling me I need to tune to 108.3 and then pair it with this transmitter. Unfortunately, since this is an analog tuner, I can't do that, so this transmitter is not usable for this type of vehicle, so that's a bit of a bummer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to check the tape deck or the cassette functionality. So I just went into the basement and dug out some random cassettes, so we've got a good selection here to try out. My musical tastes vary quite a bit, everything from Public Enemy to Black Sabbath to Pink Floyd to Simple Minds, well, oldies there, got some Beach Boys, so pretty good selection of music here to play on the old cassette radio in the car. So we'll check that out, hook the battery up, throw a few of these tapes in and play around a little bit. Out of these tapes, what would you pick to listen to first? That'll be an interesting question for the comment section. Alright, the cassette player works fine. We got some ZZ Top playing there in the background. Let me just turn that off real quick. Oh, that's kind of cool. It ejects the tape when you turn it off. One problem though, I'm not getting any output to the speaker on the left hand side on the driver's footwell. So I've just put one of the new speakers in, thinking that the other speaker could have been blown, but I put the new speaker there and nothing is coming out. So I've played around with the knobs on the radio to see if I've got a left and right balance. I don't seem to be able to affect that at all. So I'm going to trace the wiring back to behind the radio and to see if we've got some sort of wiring issues with the leads coming out of the back of the deck. I'm hoping the output is just not screwed up on the deck and it's only feeding the right side. But let me do a little bit of investigation. We'll trace some wiring back and we'll come back, see if we can get this fixed up. All right. So we've uncovered the original wiring connections, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jumper directly from the connections coming right out of the back of the radio to the speaker here that I've just grabbed from the driver's side floor, and we'll see if that works directly. If there's a break in the wire connection going through. I think it goes behind the carpet over there to that opening for the speaker. It's possible there's a broken wire in there, so we're going to jumper this directly here and see if we can get some output from the radio directly. I'm also going to go in and grab the manual to make sure that I'm actually operating the radio as it should. I'm not quite sure what is the balance of the left and right balance knobs on this radio. I can't quite figure it out from the pictograms on the radio itself, so I'd rather just go grab the manual, which is in the original documents that the original owner sent to me. So we're going to go grab that as well, but we're going to jumper this just for fun and see if we can get the speaker to operate. I'm actually going to see if I can get it to operate even off the right side channel just to make sure that the speaker is not blown. I'm pretty sure it's not. So we'll do a bunch of different tests here and figure out next steps. All right, it's actually looking like we have a bad speaker. I've just got the passenger side speaker hooked up to the right channel, and as you can see, we've got no sound. If I do the same hookups back to the speaker that came out of the right side, we should get sound, which we do. So, all right, I've got both channels hooked up directly now from the wiring coming out of the back of the radio. We're going to try it over in the footwell now, see if that works. Both channels working now with the new speaker on the left side and the old speaker on the right. So that is a good thing. Let me turn that off and I'll have a little bit more of a discussion. All right, glad to hear both those speakers are working. Seems to be a little bit of an issue on the back of the radio with the output cables. I can sort of jiggle the cables, and I'm not sure if they just need some cleaning or tightening back there. So I think I'm going to attempt to try to get to the back of the radio. Now I might see if I can pull that out easily. If not, I might have to try to just get back in there and behind and see if I can sort of squeeze that cable a little bit to make better connectivity on the back of the radio. So wish me luck. Actually, I've just changed my mind again. I think what we'll do is now that we know that the stereo works on both channels, and it just might be a little bit of fiddling around with that connectivity on the back of the radio, I think I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to continue with the carpet removal. That was the primary task that I wanted to accomplish, as well as obviously checking to make sure the tape deck worked, which does. And obviously the speakers now work, which do currently anyway. So I think we'll continue on with removing the carpet, and we'll come back to playing around with the radio and removing it from the dash potentially at a later date. So let's get some tools and stuff cleaned up in here. We'll get the speakers out and put away safely, and then we'll proceed to taking the rest of the carpet out. All right, just a bit more information on the speakers. So one more thing I wanted to check before I move on to the carpet removal. These are the speakers that Doc has sent me. They're quite nice little speakers. They are 5 1/4 inch to match the stock speakers. So I was checking to see if these would actually work with the stock grills. So these are the stock Alfa Romeo grills, and it looks from a spacing perspective that they will work no issue. I think I could make them work easily. The problem being is that the actual speaker itself, the outside of the cone of the speaker actually fouls on the face of the box. So there's not enough depth, I guess, in the actual box itself. So these will not work without impeding the functionality of the cone of the speaker, because this outside rim actually touches the back of the grill. So just so you might need to know that if you wanted to change your speakers out to a more upgraded speaker, you might have to find some different grills to work with your new speakers. So, all right, just wanted to cover that. All right, guys, we're going to attempt to remove the carpet. The first thing I need to do is to pull the carpet forward in order to clearance the handbrake. So we'll pull it forward, and then we'll lift it up so it's out of the pocket for the handbrake. So that's one of the first things we need to do. I don't anticipate being too difficult. The other most difficult area is going to be, let me see if I can go around to the other side here, just under the center where the console was. It gets pretty close at the bottom here. I guess this is the heater matrix, so it's pretty close down in that area there, if you can see that. So we got to make sure that we tuck it under there and that we pull it out from under here. So we're just going to go slowly. Obviously need to get it over that gear shaft lever. We're not going to remove that, so the carpet should come up and over that. Again, it's one piece. So anyway, we'll just go slowly. I'm not going to be able to film this, unfortunately, because there's not really going to be any good angle, and I'm going to be going back and forth on the opposite sides of the car. So we're just going to take our time, but that will be the first thing we do, is to clearance this area so we can pull it straight back towards the back of the car eventually. All right, wish me luck. I'm sure somebody's going to ask the question, so I thought I'd answer it here before it gets asked. Why somebody's going to ask me, well, why don't you just cut the carpet out since you're not going to be reutilizing it? Well, my preference is to keep it as a whole. I might need to use it as a template, so I'd prefer to keep it whole if possible versus cutting it. So that's why I'm not cutting it to get it out. That would be easier, but sometimes that's not the best way, in my opinion. All right, there's the handbrake area clearance. So we just lifted it up over, pulled it forward, and then pulled it back. So now we're going to go after the center section here and try to get that pulled up and lifted up over the gear shift lever. Alright, just like that, carpets are out, and just checking the pans, and they look to be in great condition. Even the underpad looks really good. I pull up a couple of corners here to check if there's any surface rust in the corners, and there's absolutely none. So that looks fantastic. The rear shelf, obviously you've seen, looks fantastic. Everything looks really, really good in here. So the factory sound deadening up here in the footwell, and they've got what's called, I call it tar board. They've got some sound deadening tar board here underneath the seat, so it's pretty well sound deadened. Might want to add a little bit along the inner sill here and along the top of the sill. But other than that, it looks pretty good. There's even sound deadening applied to the transmission tunnel and above the transmission. So that looks good. Let's wander around to the passenger side. One thing before I go, probably the most difficult thing about getting the carpets out was they were holding or hooking on this little gas pedal stop. You see that round disc there? That's a adjustable pedal stop for the gas pedal, and the carpet was kind of tucked down around there, so it was a little bit difficult to get it pulled up and out. So that was probably the most difficult area as far as removal of the carpet is concerned. Let's wander around to the passenger side. Have a quick look over there. There's the carpet. That, again, we'll just keep as a reference. It's always good to see where the holes were, for example, for certain elements, or how the handbrake was riveted in. So that'll be a good reference piece. This carpet originally was rubber backed as well. You can probably see here that's probably just glue there on the back, but it was completely all rubber backed, so that added some insulation as well. Here is the passenger side. Mint, even in better shape than the driver's side. Of course, this gets a lot less wear than the driver's side does, but this looks really, really good too. So happy with that. No surprises. I was careful as far as not trying to pull out any of the wiring connections. I think I did a pretty good job there. So yeah, that looks great. Happy. So I guess the only thing left to do in this passenger compartment is to play around with the radio a little bit, and like I said, we may pull that and check the inputs or just clean the inputs on the back. But other than that, this area is good to go for new carpet, and we'll talk about that in a later video. Alright guys, I think we're going to call it a day out in the garage at least. We'll go inside and start working on editing a video to upload this on Saturday late afternoon, evening. I think what the next thing I'm going to do before I start any more work out here is I'm going to do a major cleanup out here in the garage. The workbench is an absolute disaster. The TR250 is basically another storage area at the moment. We're going to get that all cleaned up. We're going to move things inside that don't need to be out here. The seats, for example, can go inside. I do need to take that seat bottom to be looked at, but they don't need to be out here, so we're going to put them safely inside and get them out of the way. We'll find a good place for this carpet to live temporarily until I don't need it anymore. But yeah, so this is a disaster out here, so we got to get this cleaned up before we start work tomorrow. I did get the thermostatic actuator in on Friday, so we have that to play with. So maybe what the plan for tomorrow is to, like I said, do some cleaning and organizing, and then we can maybe start reinstalling that thermostatic actuator. We'll do a little bit of a test of it as it came from the rebuilder, just so I can show you inside on the coffee table. We'll do the same test as we did on the old actuator, and we'll just test it before we actually put it back on the car. So we'll have a little bit of a chat about that tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. So that's it for tonight, guys, or today, and we'll see you out here tomorrow. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for watching, thanks for commenting, and thanks for subscribing. See you tomorrow.